queens forever, snow bunnies never. So when a child is raised to believe that your enemy is your deity, that God is white, that child's brain is automatically going to generalize that whiteness of God to all white people. Why you keep running to America though?
Because I think the history of America is one that is
psychology. No. I got a white wife, but I'm still a freedom fighter. No, you ain't, coon. You a bunny hopper. You ain't no freedom fighter. If white people love us so much, why we don't see that same love in the banking industry? Take that vagina with you. No!
Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the Disruption Podcast.
Let's go.
Thank you for joining us. If you're back again, it means you enjoy it. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Like, comment, share this one around. We've got a big guest in the building today. But before we get into that, it's Noor the Baghdadi.
It's Chief Olasoji in the building, baby.
It's your girl, Moeezy.
It's the Prince. What's happening?
Welcome.
And all the way from the United States, we've got Dr. Umar Ifatunde here.
Oh,
Peace and
You said that so
Pan-Africanism.
perfectly.
how are you
Prince of
feeling?
Pan-Africa.
I'm well, glad to be here.
Pan-African Prince, man. What is it? King Kong consciousness as well. Yeah, welcome,
Yes, sir.
welcome. You've come straight off the plane, so this is we apologize, but we're also thankful.
It's all
that
right.
you come down.
This
to
was
come
like
mess with us.
last minute, but yeah, well,
The liberation struggle will be anything but convenient.
Yeah. It continues out now. Well, yeah, we did not think that this was how our week was gonna pan out. when
I
thought-
removed all my plans today.
when I thought about how the week was gonna pan out, I was like, okay, yeah, this, I got this job, this meeting. I did not think we were gonna be sitting down with the Pan-African Prince today. So yeah, thank you for coming through. What's on the agenda, guys? Then let's get
let's get into it. We've
Yeah.
got very limited time. We've got 40 minutes.
Mm.
So I reckon let's get down to the juices straight away.
For sure.
course.
What's it like right now? Changes that have happened in America. How was it leaving? What was that environment like for you?
What you mean, how was it leaving?
Well, as in coming down, what was the environment that you left in terms of, we can only see so much from what we see online.
We had just had the 193rd Nat Turner Memorial, memorializing Nat Turner's death. So Nat Turner is very personal to me, because he was the most successful slave insurrectionist, revolt leader in American history. And also I was born on the day that the war started, which is also the day the Haitian Revolution started, which is also the day the George Jackson prison revolt started, which is also the day Emmett Till showed up in Money, Mississippi, which is also the day Fannie Lou Hamer showed up in Atlantic City, New Jersey for the Democratic National Convention back in 1964. So August 21st is a big day. My birthday is also the original birthday to Jesus the Christ. So Nat Turner is a big deal. So I came to you guys straight from Nat Turner. So that in and of itself is very symbolic.
For sure. That is actually powerful, especially for the purpose that you're here for as well. In terms of the landscape of United States right now, how is that?
What you mean?
In terms of the,
Be specific.
yeah, for sure. There's a lot. Actually,
It's
you're right.
flowing, it's flowing over from last week's conversation. Obviously, Trump, the next president. And we'll be talking about what the effect of that's going to look like and what that means for America, but just the world in general. From your perspective.
On ground.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple things you need to understand. Number one, the people do not pick the president in the United States. The Electoral College chooses the president. That's number one. And not even the Electoral College chooses the president. There's a shadow government in the United States of America, which includes, but is not limited to, the National Security Agency, the Trilateral Commission, the G8, the G6, the Federal Reserve, the Bilderbergs, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, the Stanleys. There's a shadow government. They are the ones who really choose the president. They pre-select people from which they will allow others to choose. So the president is an employee, not an employer. To be honest with you, I think that the shadow government wanted Kamala Harris. They wanted Joe Biden, but intellectually he began to shut down, which I believe was our ancestors repaying him a karmic debt for the fact that he spent his entire political career fighting against the desegregation of public schools in America. And so I think the ancestors shut him down cognitively. So when he was no longer able to cognitively perform, they went with Kamala Harris because in the last election, 10 million more women were registered to vote than men. So they figured that if we run a female, quite possibly, she would be able to steal the woman's vote. And if she steals the woman's vote, because there's more female voters than men, we should be able to reclaim the White House. But I think they underestimated how loyal white women would be to white racism. Just as they chose Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton, they chose Donald Trump over Kamala Harris. But Donald Trump, as I said, he's an employee, not an employer. He will be told what to do. American presidents are given some degree of domestic discretion. He will be able to influence some things domestically. But when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to the financial agenda, he will do as he is told, or he will no longer be in that seat.
I was saying that last week, and people were looking.
You were.
And the bigger piece is this: when it comes to African people, particularly the American African people, the agenda is the same. So we suffer from the illusion of inclusion in the United States, as we do in almost any European theater where we exist, like y'all do here in Australia. It's the same. We suffer from the illusion of inclusion. And so we were literally debating and arguing over who should get the black vote when neither candidate had a black agenda. The 5 major issues in black America are miseducation, mass incarceration, gentrification and homelessness, police brutality and extermination, and economic apartheid. Donald Trump has no agenda to deal with that 5-headed monster. Kamala Harris had no agenda to deal with that 5-headed monster. And so for me, I was taken aback when I saw these celebrity Negroes, the D.L. Hugleys of the world and the Steve Harveys of the world, you know, and others, even on the other side, Candace Owens, if you would, who were crashing out for these candidates, neither of which had anything in store for black people, you know. And so, unfortunately, we made the situation worse for ourselves because for a while, the American African people were saying, we're not voting at all if y'all don't deal with the issue of reparations. Y'all have not compensated our ancestors for building this country brick by hypocritical brick. Kamala Harris was asked a direct question by a black female journalist. What are you going to do about reparations? And her answer was very clear. I'm not going to do anything just for black people. So we got our answer on reparations, and we still went to the polls and voted for Kamala Harris. She walked away with 85% of the black vote last Tuesday. So if you say, I'm not voting unless reparations is on the table, and she says reparations is not on my table, and you still go vote, that means America never has to take your cry for reparations serious again. They also don't have to take the black agenda serious because 85% of us still crashed out for Kamala Harris. And Donald Trump won despite her getting 85% of the black vote. And now that Latinos outnumber American Africans in America, the new vote to get, the new so-called minority vote that is now the priority vote is the Latino vote, not the black vote. So that is to say black people better organize or we will die.
Well, I mean, you slightly answered that. I was going to say, where does that now leave?
Organize or die?
Yeah. Where does that ultimately, leave?
See, Barack Obama put us in a corner because up until the 44th president of the United States, black people were always the priority minority. Nobody liked us. No president fought for us, but they always had to speak to our reality. Every president, from George Washington to Barack Obama, had to speak to black people's reality. That would change after Barack Obama, largely due to the fault of the American African people, because we allowed him to coast for 8 years and did not ask him to do a damn thing for us and did not hold him accountable for doing something for everyone except us. Barack Obama is the only president in American history who black people never asked to do anything for them. And as a result of that, we created a situation that allowed Barack Obama to make the homosexuals more important than black people, to make brown people more important than black people, to make white people more important than black people. And so by the time Barack Obama got out of the White House, we were no longer the priority minority. We let a black president do that to us.
I'm interested to know what especially with the organize or die sentiment as well, what are some of those next steps then, very practically? Like, what does that look like?
Well, economics and politics is the foundation of any liberation struggle. So no matter where you are, if you're African in the world, you don't fix yourself without first educating the children. So number one, they understand racism. And number two, they know how to succeed despite it. And the other side is your economics. We're not going to repair ourselves as a race and as a Pan-Africanist. I speak about us globally. We're talking particularly about the American African theater, but I just came from London Tuesday. I just came from Toronto last week. Okay, I'll be in Sweden in January, Ireland probably next month. And no matter where you go, when you're talking about African people, there's the need for independent education of our children, and there's the need for a serious, independent economic empowerment system. The reason black people are homeless, impoverished, unemployed is we cannot get lines of credit from alien banks. There's no East Indian bank that's going to finance us. There's no Chinese bank that's going to finance us. There's no Australian bank. There's no American bank. There's no British bank. White people, non-Africans, period, because they're not just white folks. Non-Africans, period, are not going to invest in black people, because if black people stand, everyone else has to take a seat. Our oppression is the context by which the reds, brown, yellows, and whites eat. If you can't exploit black poverty, if you can't exploit African resource, if you can't take advantage of African people, then you can't succeed. Our oppression, our underdevelopment has created the atmosphere that allows the Asians and the Arabs and the East Indians and the Jews and the Anglo-Saxons to do what they do. Nobody wants to see an economically empowered African people.
African people being a very global people as well, but now taking it down to even just the continent, right? I'm looking at it in terms of how, this is obviously years ahead that you probably have to think, but how does organization even happen on that continental level, considering how foundationally similar we are, but how expressionally different the African people can and diverse they can be on that one just continent alone, let alone globally.
Well, number one, we have to stop exaggerating diversity. White people are diverse, but they still work together to preserve white supremacy. Arabs are diverse, but they still have the Arab League. Asians are diverse. They don't all like each other, but they can still come together to look out for the agenda of the Arabic people or the Asian people. So we don't have to be a monolith in order to cooperate. The bottom line is we all have a shared origin and we all have a common enemy, period. So you unite around those things. The fact that you have more diversity in the African continent than you have outside of the African continent should not be a problem. Our problem is not diversity. Our problem is self-hatred. That's the problem, because diversity is not an issue. Jews think they better than Irish. Irish think they better than Italians. Italians think they better than Anglo-Saxons. Anglo-Saxons think they better than Southern Europeans, but they can still work together. African people should be able to do the same thing. Our diversity should be embraced. Diversity is a benefit. It is not a detriment. We don't have to be a monolith, but I think sometimes we exaggerate this diversity to the point where we can't work together. Anybody outside of the African race knows who African people are, and they don't like us. So nobody has an issue in knowing who we are, but we try to exaggerate these differences that we have to come up with excuses not to work together. Nobody's going to save African people but African people. Now, if we want to stay where we are, if we like this current European world order, then so be it. If we want to keep on being the laughing stock of the world because we want to keep exaggerating diversity, then so be it, right? But if we're going to make up our minds that we're going to stand and be independent and bring forth a African world order, then stop exaggerating the differences and work together, cooperate. We have an African Union. The problem with the African Union is most of the member states are in debt to the European colonial powers. So what good is an African Union when everybody sitting around the damn table is financially enslaved to Britain or Belgium or America or the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund? I spoke in Ethiopia for African Liberation Day last year at the invitation of the government of Ethiopia. And one of the things that I really took issue with is the fact that the new African Union headquarters was built by the Chinese. How can the governmental complex of the United States of Africa, which is what it should be, that was the dream of the most honorable Marcus Garvey, that was also the dream of Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, not an African Union, but a United States of Africa. But be that as it may, how can the governmental headquarters of the African Union be built by a colonizer? You let the Chinese come in and build the African Union. Do you think the British are going to let Chinese people come in and build a castle for them? No, you do that yourself. But we've gotten so dependent on handouts and charity and so-called investment, which is a new word for neocolonialism, that we let these people come in and literally build the very structure that's supposed to end their exploitation of the continent.
There's a lot there now, because I mean, in one hand, I'm wondering how the leaps and bounds required to get to the place where, yeah, for sure, there is the investment from within, as opposed to, you know, investment. I'm saying investment, but the leaps and bounds required to see us be at a point and a place where we are investing from within ourselves, as opposed to do you not see a position or a place where you could take the growth or the development or the investment, or like if we're talking about the symbol of the
neocolonialism, you can't take it. Neocolonialism is killing Africa. There's 3 reasons why Africa can't stand because of the so-called investment, which is nothing but neocolonialism. Number 1, when the World Bank and the IMF, Britain, France, Belgium, America, when they loan African states this money, particularly the IMF and World Bank, which are both United States-based institutions, they make 3 things a requirement. Number 1, the interest rate. Most African countries are in debt because they have to spend so much of their gross national product servicing the debt. They're not even knocking off the principal. They're servicing the debt, the interest. They're not even touching the principal. So the debt is not going away. It's getting bigger, and still you're spending 30, 40, 50, 60% of your GNP financing the debt. So that's number 1. They make sure the interest is so high, you'll never pay it back. They give you the loan with the expressed intent of putting you into financial slavery, and we keep on taking the damn money. I'm going to come back to that in a sec. So number 1 is the interest. Number 2, it's the family planning strategies that they make you sign off on. So in order to get this money, you got to push homosexuality. You got to push birth control, hysterectomy, all of this other stuff, right? So they disrupt.
It's documented, this type of.
Oh, yeah. This ain't no secret. Go do your research. And the third thing that they do is open economy, open market. You got to have a free market economy. This is probably the biggest problem. When you take money from the World Bank and IMF, you cannot protect your indigenous market. So, for example, if I'm in Senegal and I got salt, I'm in Cameroon and I got palm oil, I'm in Nigeria, and I got cola nut, just for an example, and I export this to the world, right? I'm in Benin and I got tea. So because I got my own tea, I don't want Tetley coming in here. I don't want Lipton coming in here. I don't want Starbucks coming in here. Because I got my own salt, I don't want no European salt companies coming in here. Because we got our own salt, we're going to protect this market to make sure we have some economy and make sure we can hire our own people. But the white man says you cannot do that. If I give you this loan, even though you got your own chicken market, guess what? You got to let the British chicken companies come in and sell their chicken. You got to let the French chicken companies come in. You got to let the American. Well, if they come in and sell, they're competing against me in my own country. They can produce the product faster. They can get it here quicker. And most of all, they can do what? Sell it cheaper. So you know what happens after about 5 years? What happens? My chicken market gets sabotaged by the competition. My salt market gets sabotaged by the competition. My tea market gets sabotaged by the competition. That's why you have African countries importing goods that they can grow. Why am I importing salt if I can grow salt? Why am I importing chickens when I had my own poultry farm? It's because the white man made you compete with his companies in your country, and they sabotaged your market. They want Africa completely dependent on white folks because it's the only way they can continue to exploit. Here's the other problem. African leadership. We have a crisis in African leadership. We have a crisis in unapologetic black male African leadership. African leaders, many of them are lazy. And this is not just the continent. This is the entire diaspora. It goes for America. It goes for Central South America. It goes for the Caribbean, everywhere. Black men are more about power, ego, and money than they are about transforming the conditions under which our people live. The reason why they keep on taking money, knowing because it's going to put the people further in debt, is because they want an easy presidency. I know if I take this money, it's going to put my country even more in debt. But guess what? I want to be able to brag that I opened up that hospital. I want to be able to brag I got the new roads done. I want to be able to brag we built a new university, right? So it looks like I was a good president because I built 10 institutions. But what you're not looking at is the long-term fallout from this. Because I took this loan money, I just put my country further in debt. Now, here's in defense of them, though. If they don't do that, a rival opposition party is going to rise up, and they're going to miseducate the people and say, this guy's a horrible president. We're struggling, poverty. They don't understand that he's doing this the hard way because he don't want to put his country further in debt. And because most African leaders are afraid of that opposition and how they can be made to look like they're ineffective by making the people work from within as opposed to taking this foreign aid from without, they succumb to the loans. And they say, well, you know what? I didn't want to do it, but my people would have put me out of office if I don't do it. So Dr. Umar, I went ahead and took the $50 million in loans because the people want some comfort now. They want some ease now. They want some relief now. So we as African people are suffering from this epidemic where we don't want self-determination as the road to liberation. We want to keep on sucking the white man's titty until we die on it, as opposed to cutting off the outside aid and building from within. It's going to be hard. It's going to be rough, but you can do it. How did China become the world superpower today? Because Mao Zedong said, we ain't taking nothing else from the world. Mao Zedong sent his children all over the world to find out how people do what they do. And Mao Zedong said, we're not going to compete with what they make. We ain't going to compete with the automobile. We're not going to compete with the laptop. We're not going to compete with nothing the white man makes. We're just going to bootleg it. And we're going to make it cheaper. And so now China is the Walmart of the planet Earth. Here's what China did that was so brilliant. And I'm no Chinese fan or anything, but I recognize genius when I see it. China says, since the white man operates on capitalism, producing things cheap, selling them high, we're going to operate on socialism. We're going to produce things cheap and sell them cheap, because 2/3 of the world lives on less than $1 a day. Most poor people can't buy the stuff America make. They can't buy what the UK make. But so you know what we're going to do? We're going to become the dollar store. We're going to become the Walmart of the planet Earth. We're going to specialize in cheap food, cheap clothes, cheap household goods. And so 2/3 of the world is dependent on China for what they need. America couldn't destroy China's economy if they wanted to, because China is underselling the world.
Yeah. I feel like we can go so much into that, but I know we've got very limited time with you. So shifting gears real quick, let's talk about Australia. What brings you to Australia?
Pan-Africanism. I go anywhere African people are. Because until we unite as a race and stand as a race, we'll always live on our knees. Pan-Africanism is the only solution to the problems that face African people.
How did that trip happen? Was there someone reaching out to you? Or
Brother McGang reached out. We had talked about it for a while. Yeah, shout out to him and his team, and now I'm here.
So is your thing kind of like going around to obviously different countries and talking to the people about Pan-Africanism, or how, like, what's the idea behind it all?
The idea behind it all is I'm the most popular Pan-Africanist in the world, and when my people call on me, I come. It's really not an agenda on my part. Yeah. But, you know, I'm an educator and a psychologist at heart, so I think the two kind of go together, because one of the biggest weapons against our people is the miseducation of our children. So being a psychologist, being a diagnostician, being someone who evaluates children for mental illness, because that's a big problem, it naturally gives me the ear of the people to talk about Pan-Africanism. In other words, if I didn't have something to offer our people by means of being a psychologist, I do not know if I would be as popular as I am. But I serve a niche, a very critical niche within the community, and that is in being an educator and a psychologist. So right now in Wilmington, Delaware, 20 minutes from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, we're putting the finishing touches on the renovations of the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy. I'm related to Frederick Douglass by blood, and I'm former Minister of Education for the Honorable Marcus Garvey's organization, the movement that gave us the red, black, and green flag. Of course, if you know Malcolm's story, Brother Malcolm's father was actually assassinated doing work for the Honorable Marcus Garvey. Malcolm was raised in the Garvey movement, and it was Malcolm's father who actually wrote the Calvin Coolidge trying to get Marcus Garvey acquitted of the fraudulent charges that was put upon him by J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI. It was called Bureau of Investigation then. It didn't have an F in front of it yet. So that school, my vision, my work for the rest of my life is to build schools. I want to be the first superintendent of a truly global African-centered school system. So if you have a child in Australia, they go to the FDMG Australia. If you move to Sudan, guess what? We got an FDMG in Sudan. You want to go to Toronto, we got an FDMG in Toronto. You move into New York, we got an FDMG in New York. I want to create a global educational system for our children because, as my ancestor Frederick Douglass said, it is better to raise strong children than to repair broken men. The most honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey said, don't take the kinks out of your hair, take the kinks out of your mind. Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the father of black history, said, when you control a man's mind, you don't have to worry about his actions. You don't have to tell him where to sit or where to go. He will automatically go to the back room without being told. And when he gets to the back room, if there is no door to walk out, he will make a door and walk out of it because his education made it so. I don't think we as African people really understand how critical a role re-Africanization will play in the liberation of African people. As Garvey said, until you liberate the minds of men, you will never liberate the bodies of men.
Yeah, I think ultimately it's powerful. Like, obviously, knowing yourself that's one of the hardest feats that a lot of people die without ever knowing. So, like, that is quite a powerful
and knowing your enemy.
and
what did Sun Tzu say? Well. Sun Tzu said, if you know your enemy, but you don't know yourself, you may win half the war. You know yourself and don't know your enemy, you may know half the war. If you don't know yourself or your enemy, you will lose every battle. But if you know yourself and know your enemy, you won't be defeated in 1,000 battles. We got to teach them both. And knowing yourself isn't just knowing the pyramids. It's not just knowing the great ancestors. It's about knowing the mistakes we made as African people. Too often we approach history from a celebratory standpoint. History should not just be celebratory. History should be instructional. History should show us where we messed up, because if you don't learn from the mistakes, you will repeat them. I see us repeating a lot of mistakes. One of them in the area of religion. I see black people identifying with their religion over race. I see African people caring more about being Muslims and Christians than being African, which allows an opportunity for white people who are Christians or Arabs who are Muslims to come in, exploit your emotional attachment to your religion, and they end up using that against us. So when I'm in Africa, there's African brothers who care more about being Muslim than being African. Across the diaspora, you got brothers and sisters who care more about Jesus than they care about black folks. Nothing comes before the race. Pan-Africanism, at least Garvey's Pan-Africanism, we talk about African race first, the African family first. Black is always first. And the reason black is first is God made you black. God made you an African. Christianity is superficial. Islam is superficial. All religions are superficial. Why? Because you can join them. You can also unjoin them.
Don't you think, though, that because if we're saying God made us, though, that the origin is God, though, that the faith would have to be the first connection point?
No, sir, because Christianity is only 2,000 years old and Islam is only 1,500. African people are 2 million years old. Christianity and Islam do not have a monopoly on God.
So I guess that comes from the framing of, like, maybe origin and, like, wherever you might stand with particular things like origin. Then
no, we're talking about history. Christianity is 2,000.
No, for sure. Like, obviously Judaism being 3,500 years old, Christianity being about 2,000 years old as well. But now if you're talking about the 2 million years old, that comes from your framing of, like, evolution as well, though, like in terms of where you look at how the world has come to be as well. I'm saying
we were around before Jesus. We were around before Abraham. We were around before Muhammad. And we were worshiping God before those religions. Every country in Africa had an indigenous spiritual system before those religions showed up. So those religions cannot be the foundation for our work because we pre-existed them. I'm not against the religions. Many of my Pan-African forefathers were pastors of the church. I'm simply saying that cannot be the basis for organization because not all black people belong to the same religion. Let me give this another way. The reason the Honorable Marcus Garvey is the greatest Pan-Africanist of all time, the greatest human organizer of all time, and the reason he was most successful than any other organization that came after him is he was one of the only leaders we had who did not put a religion on his movement. The Garvey movement was a government. It was not a religion. Honorable Elijah Muhammad, respect to him, but he put Islam on it. Noble Drew Ali put Islam on it. The Hebrew fathers, they put Hebrew on it. Father Divine, Daddy Grace, they put Christianity on it. Even in the continent, many of the movements had a religious flavor to them. Garvey said, we're not going to do that. African people are spiritually diverse. Allow them the right to worship God as they want. But when they come here, this is about nation building for African people. Whenever you put a religion on a black movement, first of all, you're doing something that's unnecessary because we don't suffer because of what we believe. We suffer because of who we are. But even more importantly than that, because our people are so religiously immature, I'm never going to feel comfortable as a Christian being a part of a Muslim movement. I'm never going to feel completely comfortable as a Muslim being part of a Christian movement. As Malcolm said, leave the religion out of it. Focus on being African. What is wrong with rallying around your biological, psychological, spiritual, genetic, and anthropological connection to the mother continent? That's where we should.
That I agree with. I think where I had a bit of contention was when it's about putting the blackness aspect. I think in the movement, then obviously at the forefront of your mind, the blackness has to be the first.
Religion is an institution.
I think that when it comes now to the religious aspect of it, it's hard to reconcile that. Like Christianity would never stop you from aligning with someone that's Muslim in a fight for justice. At the end of the day, you know that's
not true.
That's not
because one of the biggest issues we have in Africa and throughout the diaspora, and I've been all through Africa, by the way, but one of the biggest issues we have is religious tribalism.
Yeah, I think that's where the human aspect comes into it. I think we dilute these things. We are flawed people at the end of the day, but I don't think the foundation of these religions or faiths, especially like if you look at the text of Christianity, does not oppose social justice. Like
but we're not talking about the text. We're not talking about the doctrine. We're talking about the culture and the custom of it.
Yes.
And the bottom line is, and I'm someone whose father was Muslim, mother was Christian, grandma was a Jehovah's Witness. I've had them all, which was a good thing because I was able to learn from them and see them. And I saw, despite all the good, how they were still weapons of separation. Here's the thing. All of those religions are taught from a perspective that says my way is the only way or the best way. All of the world religions are narcissistic and they are all dictatorial. Christians believe if you don't accept Christ, that's a problem. Muslims believe if you don't accept Muhammad as the last prophet, that's a problem. You should understand. So those religions are not tolerant. They're not. They want you to accept what they stand for and the way they do. And because of that, you cannot organize African people around religions when every religion is chauvinistic. You follow me? Yeah. Believing that their way is the only way. Now, Christianity was African in the beginning. Islam was African in the beginning. Yeshua bin Yusuf was an African. Muhammad ibn Abdullah was an African. His mother was a black Sudanese Arab. Okay, so we know what race they belong to. But these religions were taken. The Christianity was taken by the white man. Islam was taken by the white Arab and given back to us. They reinvented and gave them back to us, and they gave them back to us with the perspective of the colonizer and the invader. These religions were used to enslave. These religions were used to colonize. And so when they gave the religions back to us, we also picked up the culture of the colonizer as well. And that's why I'll walk into a room and say, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. And if you don't agree with that, then you ain't on the right path. Well, a Christian walking in and say, Jesus is the Son of God and blah, blah, blah. And if you ain't on that page, we can't work together. Because I still come across African people who will tell you, I can't work with you if you're not a Christian. I can't work with you if you're not a Muslim.
Yeah, I think at its core, that's not a Christian value to hold then at the end of the day.
It is.
Yeah, I think that's what comes in with the colonizer mentality if you want to bring it down to that. Yeah. But I think at its core that wouldn't be a true expression.
Let me go another way. Let's keep it really, really simple. How has religion aided the African liberation struggle in the past 50 years?
In terms of aiding? When it comes down to because if we want to talk organization, we could look at it from maybe a Coptic Eastern African angle.
No, stay with my question. How has religion, any religion, aided African liberation in the past 50 years? It hasn't.
In terms of revival within communities, liberating people in that way, I would say then for sure, yes.
What has religion done
now,
about miseducation, mass incarceration, police genocide, economic apartheid? How has it helped us? How has it done anything to reduce colonization on the neocolonialism in Africa? How has religion reduced neocolonialism in Africa?
Okay. Well, I was trying to give some examples from, obviously, like you talk about some certain faith sects, which are very predominant in your Eastern Coast, your Western Coast, whatnot. So when you say religion, what do you mean by that?
Just what I said. Any religion. Any religion. I'm not excluding nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's now when we look at it in terms of the superpowers that being from these colonialist countries, right? I think it's hard to try to see what religion can do in that context. But when you bring it down to the micro level within communities, I think it's helping to mitigate some of the problems that do come down from these institutions that have been established ultimately at the end of the day.
What problem is religion solving for black people?
So if we look at it in terms of access to healthcare, access to food, those kind of things there, I do believe that religion has a very strong role to play in terms of the giving out to the people that need food, providing shelter, those kind of things.
So you're talking about poverty programs.
Not poverty programs. I'm saying that within communities ourselves, like our people helping our people, not other people coming in externally, but our people helping our people because of their motivations from faith. I would say that is a very important role to play in our communities right now. So,
systemically and institutionally, how has religion improved the life of black people in Australia?
In Australia, okay. Well, now
or anywhere on Earth, your choice. Pick a country, pick a continent.
This comes down to now how I think and look at it in terms of they're similar, but some of the struggles and the framing from, let's say, an African American or Black American perspective.
It ain't got to be African American.
I was going to just say that they are quite different to some of our experiences.
Where you want to go?
For me,
let's leave America.
I just want to say, like, personally, for me coming from like Nigeria.
I've been to Nigeria.
The things that I hear. No. I'm talking like from being born and raised in a Nigerian family and then moving here. The experiences that I see from an African American and the things that are at the forefront of the mind is not the same kind of struggle.
But it ain't about African American. We talking about African people. Leave America out of it then. How is religion helping Nigeria? How is religion helping Australia, Black Australia? I want to answer.
I feel like I've given you the answer when it comes down to how we help our people on a community level.
What major problem is religion addressing in Nigeria for black people, in Australia for black people?
Okay, well, this is now my answer then to this then. I think the reason why there's a problem and why you can't probably identify that is because there aren't people who have faith or Pan-African views in power ultimately as well. I think it will be a very different look if we have those type of people in power.
Napoleon Bonaparte said, and I'm no fan of his, obviously, but Napoleon said, religion is what keeps the poor man from killing the rich. Religion is the greatest weapon a colonizer has ever had, especially over African people. Religion does three things that keep us cemented in our underdevelopment and exploitation by outsiders. Religion takes too much money from black people and does not reinvest it in a way that's beneficial systemically. Money. Number two, time. Religion takes too much time from black people that could be better spent building, organizing, and uplifting. So you got money, you got time. And the third, religion brainwashes black people. And I don't care what religion it is, and I don't care where it is. Religion brainwashes black people into thinking their enemies are actually their friends. Religion makes poor people think they're winning when they're not. Religion gives black people this invisible insurance card that says even if you don't solve your own problems, Jesus or Moses or Muhammad or something else from outside your community is going to come and do it for you. If I could snap my fingers, I would let religion disappear. We would be better off as a people without it. But as a Pan-Africanist, as one who believes in freedom of religion, people can worship whatever they want to worship, but having been all over the world, one of the few black scholars who has ever been all over the world, I can tell you, and I've studied religion everywhere, I can tell you that even black people who think they're progressive there often comes a time where their religion kicks in, takes over from their loyalty to African people and the African freedom struggle, and it's a point by which they cannot struggle anymore. I'm going to give you an example. I was in a meeting with an imam, a very famous imam. He's an ancestor now. There was going to be an initiative against police brutality, but it was only for African people. And he said, I cannot join this. And one of the brothers said, why? He said, because my religion, I am a Muslim, and my religion does not allow me to belong to any organization that is based on race. I've heard similar things from Christians as well, leaders in particular. And that is one of my biggest pet peeves with religion, because in order for us to fix ourselves, it's going to have to be an all-African struggle. Everything we do from top to bottom must be all African people. That's a principle of Pan-Africanism, by the way. And so when you get religious leaders talking about my church, my masjid can't be part of an all-black struggle because my God don't see no color, your religion has just become the enemy of black people.
I think then that comes down to a fundamental misunderstanding of what that faith can do. Because for me myself, I mean, we're involved in an organization called African Youth Alliance, right? That stemmed from the values that my faith upholds, which is Christianity, right? It stems from the fact that everyone needs to be upheld. And for right now, I can focus on my community. So I think when it comes down to people who say my faith won't allow me to relate to this, I think that might be their own fundamental misunderstandings of what that faith should, the expression of that faith is actually.
But it's not an individual problem, though. This is
definitely. These things spread collectively. For sure. I agree. I definitely
I've been
agree
on
with
the
you.
continent in the same thing, you know, where I've had pastors and imams in Africa say they couldn't be part of an all-black
Which is
situation
crazy.
because it was a...
So are you against religion, or are you against the misuse of religion? Because that's what it kind of sounds like.
No, I was very clear, Queen, in what I said. I said that as a Pan-Africanist, I believe in freedom of religion. But at the same time, I recognize that religion is a psychological and political obstacle to the unification of African people. Religion also gives us a false belief that we can somehow repair white people with religious faith and belief, and racism does not respond to religion. Racism uses religion, but racism cannot be rectified by religion. So I believe in religious freedom. I don't have issues with religions. One of the reasons why I'm so popular is because I let people worship as they want to worship. I don't care. But when you come to the table and it's time for us to organize, I don't want to hear about Jesus. I don't want to hear about Muhammad. I don't want to hear about Moses, because ain't none of them coming to help us. We got to help ourselves. And we need to be very, very clear about that. And the minute you mention Jesus, somebody who believes in Muhammad going to be offended. Somebody who believes in Moses is going to be offended. So religion, again, religion is not a unifying tool.
I think that's why humanity gets that wrong then, for sure.
Religion is not a unifying tool.
I got two questions for you, Dr. Umar. You mentioned before around the self-hatred. When you were talking about, when I mentioned around the diversity within Africa, and you said that it comes from the fundamental self-hatred. I want you to help us define that. And then secondly, especially when you look at how maybe Frederick Douglass went about being an abolitionist, and how that was very different to some of the radical abolitionists at the time in terms of his willingness to collaborate within government, or collaborate with, you mentioned how a very core aspect of Pan-Africanism is not working with people who are not African, right? But you see Frederick Douglass going about that in a slightly different way in terms of who he works with and the powers that he leverages in order to lead to the abolition of slavery. How do you reconcile that with the Pan-African principles, which I did hear you, I think you did a live on that at one point, and that's where you bring up the AFF as well. But yeah, how do you reconcile, I guess, the position where, there might be an opportunity to collaborate and how allow that to be reinvested and empower our community, but then a separate question was around what is your definition of the self-hate within that context?
Well, within self-hate, post-traumatic slavery disease or post-traumatic colonization disease, I don't think I have to go so deep into that, because I think most people understand what self-hatred is.
Sure.
We have a falsified consciousness. All of us are Europeanized Africans through colonization, through slavery. The white man's core beliefs, his system of evaluating the world was made our system. He forced it on us. He beat it into us. He whipped it into us. He cut off hands and breasts and things like that. He terrorized us into thinking the way that he does. And in order for African people to get back to being African, we're going to have to exercise the ghost of the slave master. We're going to have to exercise the ghost of the colonizer. One of the biggest concerns I have in the African world today, again, this is global, is most of our children. I don't care if it's Jamaica, Bahamas, Bermuda. I don't care if it's Toronto, Montreal, Nova Scotia. I don't care if it's Philadelphia, Los Angeles, or Houston. I don't care if it's Nigeria, South Africa, or Kenya. Most of our children are still taught on a European curriculum globally. And that doesn't matter if they go to an impoverished school or the best white school in their country. They're being taught what white people believe is important. And they're not being taught much about themselves at all. And when I see that the education of African children universally is still in the hands of the oppressor, I know we're not serious about our freedom. One of the best ways to judge whether or not people are ready to be free is to see whether or not they take responsibility for their children's education. Until African people take responsibility for our children's education, the world will never take us seriously. Nobody sends their children to their enemies to get educated except African people. That is a global reality. So with the self-hate, it's being taught. It is literally being taught to our children in the schools, in the church, in the media, and in the church, that white Jesus. I don't care where you go in Africa, white Jesus is there. Another big problem I got with religion, because they haven't gotten rid of the white Christ yet. White Christ is in every African country. White Christ is in every Caribbean country. White Christ is in every United State. White Christ is in every Central or South American African country as well. So when we talk about self-hate, religion has played a very central role into teaching African children that white people are superior to them. There is no way you can take a child to church and have him pray to his enemy and not think that creates an inferiority complex.
I hear this white Jesus conversation a lot, and it's just not been my reality growing up, especially a lot of the people around me either. I think
what hasn't been your reality?
The reality in terms of that perspective. Like I've never...
What perspective?
The perspective of white Jesus, white man superiority and things like that. Like it's just never been what...
Well, that's the reality. I'm a psychologist, and I can tell you that's the reality.
Yeah, but I think
everything in the human brain is stored as an image. Everything in your memory is stored as an archetype. In the brain is a generalizing instrument. So if you get into a car accident,
it's easier to frame things.
If you get into a car accident right now, the next time you're in a car, the trauma of that car accident is going to have you so paranoid for a while that you're going to start think that whenever a car rolls up on you, you're going to get hit again. Okay. When a woman is sexually abused, God forbid, when a woman is sexually abused, whenever she gets behind a closed door with a man, her heart is going to start palpitating because her mind has automatically associated with this can happen by any man. Car accident, every car that comes close is going to hit me. So when a child is raised to believe that your enemy is your deity, that God is white, that child's brain is automatically going to generalize that whiteness of God to all white people. And it makes it more easier for the child to accept white superiority and domination. So the reason the president is white, the reason the governor is white, the reason most billionaires are white, the reason why Africa was exploited by white people is because God is white. And if God is white, then the superiority of white God automatically extends to all white people. And that is why it's so easy for black people to accept white people being in charge, because we were raised in religions that had no problem giving us an image of the deity that looked exactly like our enemy. There's no way you can disqualify white Jesus from the inferiority complex that African people have.
I think for sure that's true, and especially within the context of like what we see in America. But it's
not America, global. You keep going to America.
When I think about
stop going to America.
No.
We're talking African people.
I think
why you keep running to America though?
Because I think the history of America is one that is
psychology.
No.
He won't keep talking about America. What you keep running to America for?
No, let me tell you this.
Self-hate is in every African country. So why you keep running to America for?
I agree with that. I just
psychology is psychology. If I go take a whole bunch of Asian kids and I raise them with a black Jesus, They're going to have a special level of respect for black people because that is the image in which their deity was cast. Now, the truth of the matter is we do know Jesus was black. We just saw the president of Russia, Putin, a couple months ago, go down into the chambers of the cathedral in Russia and pull out all the images of black Christ. So we know Jesus was an African. At least I know, and the evidence is there, and I have it. But psychology is universal. So it's not just about what happens in America. You got white Jesus as entrenched in Africa as you do in America, in the Caribbean. It's everywhere.
No, I think the
so for me as a Pan-Africanist, I don't go running around saying, okay, I'm going to see if the problem is worse than America. I'm going to see if it's worse than Africa. I'm going to see if it's worse than South Africa. One of the things that is crystal clear to me, and the Honorable Marcus Garvey said this 100 years ago, and I can't agree with him more. He said as he traveled the world, he saw that the problems of African people were more similar than they were dissimilar.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I'm saying the same thing today.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, you see white Jesus.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, you see black men snow bunny hopping. Everywhere you go, you see mass incarceration of black men.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, you got single mothers raising boys on their own. That
Yeah.
is a universal African problem, and it got nothing to do with America or Africa.
Look, no one's trying to knock out America.
black
I don't disagree with you with anything you say. All I'm saying is,
said America. What America got to do with white?
I just think that
You got way more white Jesuses in Africa than you ever find in America.
This is what I'm saying. I'm just saying. I wonder that sentiment. It's like I don't know how much of a blanket approach you can take to that. This is just how everyone who has been raised within this thinks or feels. Because I would say that, especially for me and a lot of people around me, I think that that faith that we proclaim has actually driven us in the complete opposite direction, which is much similar to what you are saying as well. In terms of there's no upholding or pedestalization of the white person. There might be the subconscious aspect that you're talking about.
What color is Jesus in your Bible?
What color? What do you mean? In my
What
Bible,
color is Jesus in your Bible?
in my Bible, Jesus has the brown skin. Yeah, there's no color, there's no picture in there.
So you've never seen Bibles with pictures? Because most Bibles do have pictures.
No, I don't have a picture Bible. That was
No, I didn't ask you that. Have you seen Bibles with pictures?
Definitely, but
And
there's
what
also
color is Jesus in the damn Bible you've seen with pictures?
But that's if you think there's only
Answer
one.
the question.
No, there can be other Bibles with other.
What color is Jesus? See, this is the problem with
brother,
religion.
No, my guy, listen.
Y'all get defensive.
No,
you don't want to answer the damn. You know damn well
You didn't even let me answer,
that
bro.
most of the Bibles that you've seen a picture of Jesus in, what color was he?
No, I agree.
What color was he?
But you no.
Answer the question.
No, I thought
This is what's wrong with
I thought you were
religion.
doing your thing where you say
Black
things three
queens
times,
forever,
bro.
snow bunnies never. Get rid of the snow bunny
You doing your
Jesus.
3-time repetition.
Get rid of the snow bunny Jesus.
Listen,
Get rid of the snow. Australia, I'm in the building.
This is what I'm saying, my guy. I'm saying, I thought you said what color is in the Bible, period, in every single Bible. I'm saying, of course, I know for most part is
What
white
color?
Jesus.
Okay.
But I'm saying, in
Why
other
you ain't
ones.
just say that?
Yeah, no, my bad. I didn't know what you were saying. But I'm saying that there's definitely a movement of people who don't hold on to that message.
Attacking the images of a white Christ is not attacking your belief system.
Definitely not. I don't.
understand?
Yeah, no, I don't. This is what I'm saying. I don't subscribe to this.
I would
to
say
that.
that's correct to attack the image of
Yes.
a white Christ.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
As a
yeah.
Christian, I
No,
would
there's
say
no
that's
disagreement
correct.
in that. I think now I've even lost where we started off with this conversation.
No,
It
it's
was a
all right.
self-pay part. It was a self-pay
It's all
part.
right.
Yeah.
Black power.
Now, Frederick Douglass and the
Oh, your question about Frederick Douglass. First of all,
because sorry, if you allow me to frame this, just in terms of the let's focus on ourselves in-house, not ever taking or repurposing some of the, if you want to call them investments or the infrastructures or finance, whatever it might be, not ever repurposing that and using that for our own good. If you think it all has to come in-house, how do you reconcile that with some of the approaches that maybe Frederick Douglass took
yes, sir.
when it came to abolishing
Yes, sir.
abolishing slavery?
Yes, sir.
How do
First
you
of all,
reconcile
Frederick Douglass was not a Pan-Africanist, so I don't have to reconcile it. That's number one. Number two, many of Frederick Douglass's contemporaries were the grandfathers of Pan-Africanism, as Pan-Africanism was born in the heart of the enslaved American African. It came to Africa. It didn't come from Africa.
Yeah.
Henry Highland Garnett was a contemporary of Frederick Douglass. He was a grandfather of Pan-Africanism. Martin Delany, the first man who said Africa for the Africans. Marcus Garvey borrowed it and added Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad. Martin Delany was a grandfather of Pan-Africanism. He used to co-edit the North Star newspaper with Frederick Douglass until they fell out because Martin Delany said America would never accept black people, that we need to go back to Africa. Edward well, Mount Blyden, who came from the U.S. Virgin Islands to America to go to seminary school, but they kicked him out because he was black, and he ended up in Liberia, became Secretary of State. He was a contemporary of Frederick Douglass. Alexander Crummell, the first black man to build a intellectual society for learned black men. He was a contemporary of Frederick Douglass. These men were also abolitionists. These men also recruited for the Civil War. And the point that I'm making is simply this: our people were enslaved at that time. So it's not a contradiction for Henry Highland Garnett to accept funding or subsidy from white abolitionists, because our people were slaves. We had nothing. We had no job. We had no rights. We're not even considered people. Yeah. That's completely different than evaluating Dr. Umar in the 21st century, and I'm out here running with white folks and taking money from white organizations. You have to judge people where they are. Our people were in a state of slavery. For sure. So if I'm in a state of slavery, if I'm back in the time of a Prophet Nat Turner, if I'm back in the time of a Frederick Douglass, if I'm back in the time of a Henry Highland Garnett and his white abolitionists who are willing to offer me funding to help liberate my people, I'm going to take it, because where else can I get it from? But in today's time, when you're talking about African people in the American context, for example, where we have a $2 trillion economy, it makes no sense for us to be taking money from white folks. It makes no sense for us to have white people in our organizations. We've grown a lot in the past 200 years. So for me, I don't have to reconcile it, because I recognize the condition that our people were in, and I recognize the lack of resources that our early Pan-Africanists had. And so, yes, I didn't see a problem with them collaborating, because we came from nothing. We just got out of chains. Yeah. Henry Highland Garnett escaped from slavery. His family ran away. They was going to lynch his mother for teaching him how to read. And so Martin Delany, the same thing. So you're talking about, you know, formerly enslaved Africans who gave birth to Pan-Africanism and used whatever resource they could find in the early stages of the movement. I don't see a problem with that.
Do you think it diametrically opposes the Pan-African view within the context to try to repurpose that right now in the 21st century, as you're speaking to that? Like, there's immediately the moment that you have the view of collaborating, leveraging, if I want to say the word leveraging instead, leveraging some of the opportunities, investments, whatever it might be. Does it immediately ruin your Pan-African, I guess, attempts or initiatives that you might have? Because at the core of it, you're taking from other people.
I don't take from other people.
No, not you, sorry. I'm just saying, like, if someone were to have that view.
Here's the thing. Not everybody is as committed to African liberation as some of us are, but they still have a right to participate in the struggle. For me, it's all about knowing. Let's take everybody in this room, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 of us, right? I'm not going to exclude anybody except unless you're a bunny hopper. If you're a bunny hopper, you're not working with me at all, okay? White vagina, white penis.
That's a problem in Melbourne, by the way.
You said that's a problem in
all over the world. If you're a bunny hopper, white vagina, white penis, we're done, okay?
Lock it off.
Outside of that.
Okay, that aside.
Sister right there says, Doc, I want to help liberate black people.
Yeah.
But I don't want to lose my job.
Yeah.
You say, Doc, I want to help black people, but I don't want to get kicked off of the media. I like being on TV. Sister say, I want to help black people, but I got some white friends and I'm not giving them up, right? This brother right here says he'll go to jail for the struggle.
Come on.
But he not going to die for it. That brother say he'll die for the struggle, right? Hypothetically.
Is he allowed?
I'm a hypothetical brother.
Hypothetical brother.
Oh, my bad. Okay. But anyhow.
I thought you thought it was a North African over there.
No, I thought you was a mixed race African. But
as far as I know, I'm not. But
got you. But here's my thing.
Got you.
If I know what you're willing to sacrifice,
yeah,
I know where to put you in the movement.
You leave it at that point. Okay.
She don't want to give up her white friends. So she's not going to be in my inner circle because she ain't even willing to lose her white friends.
You got no white friends?
You feel me? So I might use her to gather information. I might give her some secretary duties, but she's not going to be a part of nothing important because she got white folks. This brother right here willing to go to jail for the struggle. He could be a little bit closer to me because going to jail, that's a major sacrifice. Another brother he willing to die for the struggle. Oh, he's in the inner circle because he's willing to pay the ultimate sacrifice.
Are you willing to pay the ultimate sacrifice?
Of course. But stay with me.
Yeah, no.
But that question is irrelevant.
No,
you know
I was just
what?
wondering. Yeah.
No. The reason why I said the question is irrelevant because you don't know that until I'm in that situation.
Of course, 100%.
You feel me? I can say whatever I want to you.
Yeah. What does your heart feel, though?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you don't know till you get in that situation.
Definitely.
Right?
Wow.
So my point is everybody has a right to participate. We just have to put them in the right place. The great Huey P. Newton said, and he was not a Pan-Africanist, but Huey is one of my heroes, and Huey said of the Black Panther Party, information is disseminated on a need-to-know basis. We have to stop thinking everybody has to come to the table ready to die.
That's interesting.
Everybody not going to be ready to die. You feel me? Put them where they can best serve based on what they're willing to sacrifice. And that's how we move out. Ultimately, I think there has to be two circles. Those who are financed by white people, and those who include white people, and those who are straight up grassroots, 100% hardcore Pan-Africanists. We can collaborate a little bit.
Okay.
But we also
This
have
is
to be,
different to what I feel like.
but we also got to be separate sometimes, right? Because for those of us who don't take no white money, y'all can't know everything we doing because one of y'all might snitch us out because y'all getting paid. At the end of the day, if you are financed by the enemy, you have been compromised. It's no getting around it. There is no black organization on planet Earth. There's no black leader. There's no black activist getting money from a non-African source who has not been compromised. Psychologically, you're automatically compromised the minute you accept subsidy from another race.
Compromise, man. African Youth Alliance
It's like
is
the
compromised.
black- it's like-
African Youth Alliance is finished.
Hey, at least you honest though.
I mean, okay, yeah.
I can respect the honesty. It's when somebody say, well, yeah, I got a white wife, but I'm still a freedom fighter. No, you ain't, coon.
Oop.
You a bunny hopper. You ain't no freedom fighter.
So you're saying the two can't exist, can't coexist?
How the hell you gonna
What's
fight for
the-
black people and sleep with their enemy?
Love is love.
Top 3 favorite white
Love
people.
is not love.
Love is love.
Love don't love
You fall in
nobody.
love with the personality, not the race.
Listen, love is
Nonsense.
love. What's your top 3 favorite white people?
Love ain't no damn love. If love, show me a rich white woman married to a broke ass
I
black
heard you
man.
say this
If
before.
love
Yeah,
is
that's a
love.
very interesting-
Honestly, it's a
It's a very
valid point.
interesting-
I've
yeah,
heard as well.
valid
It's a
point.
valid point.
No, love is
Oh, you said
love.
that on, but I was like, oh, that's an interesting point.
Here's if white people love us so much, why we don't see that same love in the banking industry? Why we don't see that same love in the judicial court system? Why we don't see that same love from the police on the street? Why we don't see that same love when it comes to sharing of the resources in the society? Don't you find it a little bit crazy that the only time white people can show us equality is behind a closed door in the sheets? The
honestly,
hell out of here.
I
Take
honestly,
that vagina with you. No!
he's gonna wake up every tenant in this
African
building.
queens forever. I want caramel bunny, chocolate bunny, butter almond bunny, pecan bunny,
think-
sweet brown sugar bunny, fudge bunny. I don't want no damn pale bunny.
Where's your bunny at? Yeah, no.
That's the real question.
I think I've heard you say before that
That's the
the
real
Prince of
question.
Pan-Africanism needs a queen to stand by him.
I'm gonna have 2 queens.
Huh?
2.
Why
You
stop
have
at
to,
Why
because
stop
you're
at
going
2?
to have
Yeah.
to.
Why stop at 2 and where they at?
First
What's
of all,
going on?
as we get older, we have to slow down with the intimacy because it'll kill you. 5 wives, I'll be dead. 5 sets of Cinnabons, I'll be in a damn hospital with a heart attack.
Zero effectiveness
So-
for the work.
That's high blood sugar, man.
No, I know a queen mother. She was one of 5 wives. She told me, she said, Dr. Umar, my husband is dead because he had 5 wives.
Wow.
That is too much energy you putting out. So I know I just need 2 sets of Cinnabons. But listen, it's not about the sex. It's about the work. The reason I need 2 queens is because what I need to do for African people requires 2 serious secretaries. Serious. And the reason the wives need to be the secretaries,
Okay, that's what I was gonna
and
ask.
women notice, when you do that kind of work for a man and you coming from the church, you know that there's a lot of, what do they call, adultery that takes place between the secretary and the pastor.
Okay.
Because when the secretary is holding down the church like that, there's an emotional connection that forms.
So this is protection for yourself.
And she ends up, absolutely, it is protection. It is honesty. It's being honest. Why am I going to have a woman
about
holding me down
self-control?
like that? It ain't got nothing to do with self-control. We talk about human nature.
Yeah.
It's just like when people say, you have more black women than you have black men. If you marry every black woman to a black man in most white societies, right? You're still going to have, take America. In America, if you marry every black man to every black woman, you're still going to have about 1 million black women without a husband.
So do you need
So he's saying
others to
double up.
help or double? Okay, good.
He's saying,
what I'm saying.
no others to help.
So
no,
those women,
No others to help.
those women,
Double up.
they're going to have a man. And one of the contradictions that black women have to deal with is black women will tell you in a minute, I'm not going to be one of 2. I'm not going to be polygamy, right? And then they will go and have an affair with a married man.
Damn.
And I'm trying to understand how you just said you cannot be one of 2, and you are the side piece. You're not even a wife. And you cool with it. So we got to deal with the contradiction. You see what I'm saying? So I'm going to have two queens because they will be the secretaries. They will be working. This is work.
Do they play the same role for you? Like as in secretary role? It's not a different role for each one. It's the same.
Yeah, it'll be the same role. I mean, they will decide how they divvy up the responsibility. You feel me? But at least this way, the secretaries are the wives. So there's no adultery needed. As opposed to me bringing in a sexy-ass queen, a sexy-ass secretary doing all the work, and she doing all the work, and I'm like, damn, she hold me down, and she like, I'm holding you down. And sooner or later, somebody gonna get them.
You're holding her down.
Buzz Bank. Nah, this man's right. Australia is here.
Buzz Bank.
Look, I am not, like, even just religion aside, I don't like the idea of having multiple wives. I think men who do it, like, it's just bizarre to me because I don't believe that you can give the same effort to both, right? And I know you talk a lot about like fatherless homes and black women having to raise children on their own. If you're doing this, I'm guessing is the idea that you have both living under the same roof, all your kids
not
under the same.
Oh.
No,
they would decide if they want to live under the
now,
same. Me personally, I think every black woman needs her own castle.
So then now how are you going to be a present father to those two different homes then?
Question?
And
No, that's a great question. That's a great question.
That's
a great question. If it's done right, like in traditional Africa, right? You have the homes of the wives that surround the home of the husband. So every child has equal access to the husband because they live right next to their father. So that's not an issue.
Who are putting in the effort to spend time with the father, or because the way that it's like for me, because the way that it's sounding, it's like, okay, yeah, the father's in the middle, kids and the wives are around. So it's now like, okay, I want to go see dad, I'm going to go see dad. Or is it dad is coming?
It's no different than if they all lived in the same house.
I have I'll give you an example because this is where I think maybe depending on Western context and African context can be different. So I have a previous partner where she was from South Sudan. Her grandfather had 3 wives, and it was literally house, right? And her mother's experience of it growing up was dad was always available for everybody, right? In Australia, my previous partner, dad had 2 wives, one here, one there, and it was probably one of the most destructive things she could have experienced. So I think, now obviously me with and you're probably right about this, where it comes to my faith beliefs, I don't believe in polygamy, but I can see how contextually it makes sense back home for them.
Type of a setup. But
here, I think it gets difficult. And then I guess that was kind of my question on to tag onto yours is like, how do you then, in the financial situation that is the Western world and people just trying to survive?
Well, if you can't afford it, you shouldn't be doing it, number one, because polygyny should have a benefit to the women financially.
Yep.
If the women are not benefiting financially, then that's not even polygyny, right? Now, the other thing, when a sister says, I don't agree with it, that's fine. But then my question becomes, what are you going to do about the fact that there's not enough men to go around? What are we going to do about all these fatherless homes? You still have to deal with that. And we have to deal with it without being hypocritical because, as I said earlier, the same women who say, I don't want to be one of two, will happily date a married man on the low.
That's why we have the global perspective, though. We can still have the monogamy, but we start tapping in with our Jamaican brothers. Start tapping in with our,
because
go back home.
Because saying that I don't believe in polygamy is almost like co-signing adultery. Because all those
No,
listen. Let me finish this thing.
I'm willing to.
Let me tell you why I'm saying it.
Yeah.
Because if you say there's only going to be monogamy, let's say we're making the law.
Yeah.
There's only going to be monogamy. But you got a whole bunch of women who ain't got no man. What are those women going to do? They're going to share your husband, and they're going to do it without your permission. See, I am a political pragmatist. So my thing is real simple. Any question you ask me, whether it's the bunny hop, whether it's plural marriage, my answer is going to be this. How does that benefit or not benefit African people? Monogamy in a European theater does not benefit African people because there's a war on black men, too many fatherless homes, and there's not enough men to go around. That automatically means women will be sharing your husband behind your back. Nobody is not having sex or making children because all the men are married.
We gotta have faith in people.
What's that got to do with faith? No, this
faith
has
in the
nothing to
people.
do with faith. We're talking about sociology.
Yeah.
We're talking about human nature.
Can I ask, what's the ratio? Why is the ratio like that?
But even in the global
what's the
perspective,
reason
in a
for
Because of the war on black men.
What about in a global context, though?
The war on black
Does
men.
that same ratio, do you reckon, exist?
Well, I'm speaking purely of European context. So in Europe,
okay, right. Yeah,
Toronto, United States, you feel me? Brazil,
yeah.
in most places where Caucasians dominate
It's
and
that.
you have a large black population, there's a war on the men.
That's where the systematic, I guess, part comes into play,
Absolutely.
oppression, etc.
Mass incarceration, homosexualization, homosexual, and fratricide.
So what was
Black on black male, fratricide.
Yeah.
Murder.
Yeah.
So you ain't got enough brothers.
Yeah.
So,
In other words, if we married every black woman in Australia right now, every black woman is, every black man.
We still have some.
Let's say you got 100 black women without a husband. You married all the men. What are they going to do? You know what they're going to do? They're going to share your husband.
That's where the church comes into play, man. We got the
Church ain't got nothing to do with it because the main people
be
sleeping
nuns.
with married people is the church.
No, we'll get some
pastors
nuns.
the pastors are the biggest whores in the community. The pastors are the biggest whores in the community.
Next steps
Stop
right now.
playing.
Next
No
steps.
way.
Hey, next episode.
The 100 women will just go and find someone that's outside of the race.
And that's not acceptable
And that's-
because we
and
have
that's
to
what-
bunny hop in the room.
Those-
Your next steps.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Nothing more disgusting for an African woman
Let's
to
bring it down.
open,
Let's
to
bring it
open
in.
her.
Bring it in.
No,
Bring him
no.
back. Bring him back.
So you would
I'm
rather them-
unapologetic. There's nothing
Unapologetically
more
black.
disgusting than for an African woman to open her heaven and let a devil go in there and spray his ancestors all in your womb. Disgusting.
He's an ally. He's an ally.
That's our time today, man.
Next steps, okay, in terms of how we. So you didn't answer my top 3 favorite white people.
Well, first,
But I
let
don't
me
think
do
you
this
have
for
an
your
answer.
listening audience. If anybody out there needs to reach Dr. Umar, especially my parents, I am a psychologist. If you have issues with autism, learning disabilities, ADHDs, conduct disorders, because I don't know how many black psychologists y'all have in Australia. I don't know if y'all have any.
No.
But if you ever need a expert advice from a black psychologist, reach out to me. +1 215 989 9858. Again, that is +1 215 989 9858. Text me. Don't call me. I do not answer the phone. Text. If you want to email me, Dr. Umar Johnson at yahoo.com. DRUMAR Johnson at yahoo.com. I don't go by Johnson anymore, as the brother accurately introduced me, and I appreciate him for that, Dr. Umar Ifatunde, but I still keep the Dr. Umar Johnson email for parents who need to get in contact with me. So if you need some, because we didn't talk about education and mental health of our children today, so I just wanted to put that out there for the parents. If you need my help, reach out to me. And for my snow bunny moms of black children, if you need help, I will help you too. Do not try to flirt with me because I do not date outside my race. But if you need help with your African children that you gave birth to, yes, you can reach out to me as well.
Important.
I had that question actually. Do a lot of the snow bunny moms or not
They
moms,
do.
they throw
They
themselves?
reach out.
Wow.
They reach out.
They don't know the rules?
Because they know I don't hate them. You feel me? If you raising black kids, if you a white mother, you gave
don't
birth
hate
to
'em,
black
yeah.
kids,
There's help
them
that's
black
needed.
boys still gonna catch the same hell as the other black boys. You feel me?
Sure.
It ain't no difference. They still black. So yeah, I let them reach out. They still the moms.
What should we be focusing on right now then, as people who? Okay, the funniest part is I
Education,
agree with you in
economics.
a lot of these things. Okay, education,
Education,
economics. That's our
economics.
bag. We're looking to empower. That's the whole thing right now.
In
Empowering
Black
young people.
Australia, y'all need to start
Yeah, help talk to our
a
people.
credit
right now.
union or a small bank or a susu. Y'all gotta pool money together. Right? This brother say he need 10 grand to get his business started. First of all, we're going to critique the business to make sure he's going to make the 10 grand back.
He needs a little more than 10.
Because if he can't make the 10 grand back, we ain't giving him the 10 grand. So we got to see the business plan and all. He get the 10 grand. Guess what? Once he get his business up, he automatically 20% of that business goes right back into the susu. You feel me? Then we got to get her business up. Once her business up, 20% go back to the susu. Then we got to get your business up. This is what we do until everybody in the room got their business. This is how the Asians do it. This is how the Latinos do it. This is how the Arabs do it. We got to do it. We got to work. The biggest contradiction of the Pan-African struggle is we do not unite our dollars. We do not make our money work for us, and we give too much money to these non-black businesses on a regular basis. Christmas is coming up. We're about to spend billions of dollars on Christmas gifts that we don't even need, and we don't even support the black businesses that we do have.
Yeah, nah, I'm in agreement for sure. Ifatunde, huh? Yeah, it's an interesting.
Black queens forever, snow bunnies never.
Do we have time for one quick question?
Sure.
You come here on a vibe to, you know, spread the Pan-African message. What is being in Australia, what is the connection with Black Australia, like Indigenous Australia? Is there any for you, or do you kind of go?
It is, but it will depend. That will depend because, again, the Aboriginal Australians, Aboriginal Africans, as I would say, they're not a monolith in the way that they see the world, right? So some of them will embrace the fact that their roots are from Africa, right? They're probably the first group of Africans to leave the continent, okay? Yeah. Some will embrace it. Some don't want nothing to do with it. So my rule for being black, I have a two-pronged question for being black. Number one, are you biologically African? Right?
That should be yes for almost everybody.
Right. Second question, are you psychologically African? Do you feel me? So for the Aboriginal Australians who say, yeah, I understand we might have came from Africa, but that was a long time ago. I have no connection to the continent. I don't want one. I don't see myself as black. Then I don't consider them to be black. You feel me? Like me and Sister Amber Rose, you know, we had a conversation where she identifies as mixed race. She doesn't consider herself black. So therefore, I can't consider her black either. You feel me? Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas of the U.S. Supreme Court. He's a straight coon. Is he biologically black? Hell yeah. Is he psychologically black? Hell no. So you got to be biologically and psychologically black. Yeah. And that's how I judge every African.
Mic drop.
That's it.
This was fun.
Yeah.
He's here, Australia.
Thank you for coming through. Appreciate it.
I enjoyed y'all.
Thank you
for joining us. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, follow Dr. Umar wherever he needs to be followed, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace
out.
All right.